Hey guys, it's me Rhoku back with another video. This one's going to be on Baldur's Gate 3. Now I absolutely love Baldur's Gate 3. I've played it for more than 90 hours, and in those 90 hours, I've learned a bunch of game mechanics and just tricks that have made my life significantly easier that I want to tell you guys. Now these tricks aren't really like just straight up game mechanics. I'm not going to sit here and tell you about dice rolls or whatever. Those are fun to learn on your own. These tips are mostly just practical things that you can apply to your game instantly to have an easier, more efficient time going through all the content the game has to offer you, because there are some parts of the game that are pretty difficult or in some cases just impossible to get through without knowing at least some of these things, right? So here's a video with all those tips that I learned throughout my 90 hours so you don't have to trial and error and learn for yourself. So let's get right into it. The first tip is going to be something quite simple, and that is to highlight things, right? Now in this game, I personally have a problem with like differentiating colors in games like this, so it can be really difficult for me to see everything that's on the screen currently. The game kind of helps you with this by giving you a way to like highlight everything that you can interact with, and I say everything in quotations. So by default, if you hold the Alt key, it basically highlights the things you can kind of mouse over and interact with, right? And it basically highlights everything that is important for you to interact with. It's not going to highlight everything like this random vase, but, you know, this chest is more important than that vase, so it's going to highlight that, right? Now, this key is not really going to highlight really big things, right? So there's a chest back here, right? And you can see this chest is kind of larger than this chest back here, so it's not going to highlight this. It's not going to highlight this huge door, even though you can interact with it. So it's not going to highlight everything, but it's going to highlight the things that are important to just kind of pick at, right? So if you're in some of the more like open areas where it's kind of hard to pick through everything, just hold Alt and it'll basically tell you, okay, just like go through all these things if you're like a looter like me. You can also highlight all the characters too. So by default, it's going to be like the tilde key on your ESC. If you press that, it highlights every single character and just like being that you can interact with. By default, I mean, these are my player characters, so they're highlighted in blue, but you know, in yellow and red is like the highlights of the neutral guys and the enemies. So you can highlight these guys like that. The second tip is really important in my opinion, and that is to rest as many times as you want. Now with the beginning of the game, and you get like when you get that tadpole in your head, you kind of are under the impression that if you rest too many times, you're going to lose the game or get some bad ending, but that is not really the case. You should just spam your short rests and your long rests as much as possible, because you do get a ton of supplies to work with, right? And the reason for this is simple, right? The way long rests work is that you can long rest as many times as you want, okay? You can long rest as many times as you want with no consequence to the game whatsoever. But if you long rest at specific times, then it might change the story of the game. Let's say you're arriving at an area and you see someone who's like under attack, right? Some two creatures are attacking this dude. If you long rest right there and then you come back, then that dude will just be dead, okay? So the thing about long rest is not exactly about the quantity of them. It's more so about when you choose to long rest. So if there's something that's happening that looks like it requires urgency, then logically and just like it's not a good idea to long rest at that point, all right? Now, as for short rest, you can kind of just short rest whenever you need to, right? For a health boost, like right now, my characters do need a short rest, right? Like I gotta like get some spells back and stuff, and gotta get a lot of health here. So there's a short rest. It's a good boost in HP, and it helps out quite a bit. So use a short rest and long rest as much as you need to. Again, and honestly, it's good to long rest a lot, because if you long rest and you're like sleeping at the camp, there are a lot of cutscenes and things that can happen that if you just rush through the game without resting, that you can miss. All right, so my recommendation is to like long rest with like just do it liberally. Like do it as much as you need to, and maybe a bit more to get those special cutscenes so you don't miss any of the content, right? Because in my first run, I just rushed through the game with no like not resting at all, and I'm like seeing all these scenes on YouTube of like, wow, I missed all those, right? So not get into that situation. Long rest as much as you need to. Next, we've got save a lot. Now, save scumming is kind of like a contentious topic in these kinds of games. My opinion is this, right? Save scumming is perfectly fine since it's a single player game. And also, because this is one of those games where choices really matter, you kind of are inclined to save and just go through every single option just to see a character's reaction, or to see what will start combat. Or let's say you want to kill some creature that's like super annoying, but it's part of a faction that you're supposed to be allied with. Then you go kill it, and then you save back to, like, you load back to like a save from before, right? So the default button for quick saving, which is just saving on the spot, is F5, right? And then F8 is the button that you press to load back into that situation. So you don't need to go into the menu or whatever. You can just do it straight out of your keyboard quickly. And you can save basically in any situation. You can save in dialogues. You can save when there's a roll, right? Like before you roll a dice, you can just save there and just like keep re-rolling it if you want a certain outcome. You can re-roll, again, in basically any situation. One thing that's a bit weird is that if you save in a situation where you would get aggroed on by enemies, it's going to be pretty tough, because the game kind of plays first and then loads in through the game. So when I load here, it's like once it hits 100, we're still on the loading screen, but the game timer has started, so the characters are going to start moving now. What this can like lead to is you can sneak up to a position, right, that enemies pass through but you're undetected. You can save there, but if you load back into it, then the enemies will just detect you. So and you can't really do anything about it because of how the loading in the game works. And to kind of counteract that, try to save in more safe positions where no enemies are passing through to detect you or whatever, right? The next tip is going to be to abuse waypoints and just fast traveling in general. Fast traveling is one of the mechanics in this game that really feels like cheating with how powerful it is in terms of just like making your life easier, alright? The general gist of it is, if you go into your map by pressing the M key, you get a list of all the waypoints you've discovered, and the waypoints are basically just like the runes on walls, right? And if you discover them, you can teleport there from anywhere else on the map. So this is how it's going to look, and you're going to get like your overworld map, right? But I'm in some underground area because the main overall map is for you to explore. Anyway, so if you mouse over any of these fast travel points, the camera is going to automatically move there, so you know exactly where you are going, okay? Now, one area that you can fast travel to no matter where you are is your camp. So if you just click this, or you can just fast travel like this to leave to camp, your characters will just be immediately teleported there, just as how they will be teleported to anywhere else on the map, right? This is an immensely useful tool, because what it allows you to do is essentially like get yourself out of sticky situations like that. Let's say you're in an enemy base, right? You are supposed to kill some guy, but they have a big amount of troops around them. What you can do is just assassinate that one dude, get your group out of combat, and just instantly travel out of there with the fast travel, get to your camp, and then fast travel somewhere else that is more neutral, right? So this mechanic, again, feels really cheaty, but it can really come into handy, especially at an earlier point in the game, if I'm trying to be spoiler free. Anyway, our next trick, or tip rather, is send loot to camp, okay? If you're a looter like me, you just go around picking up literally everything, right? I'll pick up like bodies and stuff and just toss them like on the camp, right? I'll pick up just like this random pot that costs 1 gold just to have it in my inventory. I love picking stuff up in these kinds of RPG games. You can kind of fill up your inventory really quickly. A trick that the game gives you to manage your inventory better is to send your stuff to your camp instantly from your inventory. So, camp supply pack, right? Now, this is a very important thing to have, but I don't need a supply pack in the middle of combat, right? It has no practical purpose for me. So what I can do, right, is right-click it and press send to camp. And this will immediately send it to my camp, so that if I need it for food, I can just pick it up from my camp chest, which I'll show you where it is, right? It's on the basic, on the first kind of camp you're in, it's going to be like on the map, clearly, but in this kind of underground one, you got to go through this door, and here you find it, right? All the stuff. So, yeah, gonna take it back. Just to have it in my inventory, because I like that. You can also just distribute weight among your teammates, right? You can send the weight to people who can carry a lot. Early on, Shadowheart can kind of carry a significant-ish amount, whereas Gale and Starion are, like, not that useful in that regard. I mean, I guess Gale's around, but in any case, right, this getting sidetracked. You can basically just not have to do this sort of weight management with your team at all and just send everything you need at that moment, like, just to your camp. And the thing is, if you gotta sell everything, you can literally just go up to the shop, leave to camp, pick up everything you need to sell, and just come back and sell everything. So it's not like an inconvenience to have to deal with at all. Next, this one is probably the hugest tip in this entire video, okay? And that is to reposition before a fight. Let's just kind of run through like a scenario, okay? Let's say Shadowheart is like a villain, right? We gotta kill her. Like she's like a boss battle. So let me just take her out of the party. There we go.
My face protects me. This way.
Okay, there we go. And we are our party. So by default, your party just moves with you, and you walk up to her. You get to this point, and a conversation triggers, and then you start a fight after you say the wrong thing, or maybe all the things are wrong, and she starts a fight no matter what. And the thing is, if you start a fight like this, all the roles will just be normal, in that the people who should get initiative roles, who should start first, will start first. It'll just be like a normal fight, okay? The problem with that is, number one, if the enemy has higher initiative than you, they can get a lot of crazy abilities on your team that will just like you don't want your mage to get half his health chunked out before the fight even begins, because he's like your main damage dealer, right? And the worst part is AoE abilities, because if Shadowheart has like a single AoE ability, she can basically just nuke our whole team and just leave everyone at super low health. So the smart thing to go by this is, before we okay, so every single conversation boss has an area that if you walk into, they will start talking to you, right? So we got into the level, we save to make sure that we can kind of just retry and set things up perfectly. And then we separate our group, because each person has to be in their specific position, right? So a fighter should be, or like a barbarian, should be the guy going in first to talk to the enemy boss, because they're kind of there to get into their face quickly and kill them, right? The mage should almost always just stay back. Mages have really crazy range with their abilities anyway, because they're all ranged, so you don't need to have them in the close up at all, right? Just keep them in the back. And you can have your assassin just sneak around the enemy and get into a good position to just pick some characters off. Astarion is a really good character for this, because he's like a rogue, right? So you can basically just get into sneak mode like this, hide, and just move him around, and then get into this area. Now the thing is, right, if you're hidden, getting into the conversation area will kind of not trigger the conversation. You just kind of freely walk through it if you're hidden, and just you can move the sneaky character behind the enemy without having to trigger the conversation, essentially. But if it is in the red, in that it's in their side of vision, you'll have to get a bunch of successful stealth rolls, which can kind of be difficult. But anyway, so now this is a much better position for our team. We got our main damage dealer at the back. We got our primary frontliner at the front, ready to tank the damage, ready to get all the aggro out, and ready to be he's closest to the enemy, so he can just run in and get stuff done. And we have our stealthy character here, ready to take Shadowheart out, or take out any sort of goon, get some aggro from some of the minions, and just run around, waste their time as the team gets more room to breathe. So the straggler guy is there's a lot of creative things you can do with them to actually just kind of win fights, and that's kind of what I like to do in this game. I just like to fight the main group, and then Astarion just kind of messes around at the side, just doing his own thing. But anyway, right, one more tip that I can give you is, if this is a situation where you're going to fight no matter what, right, it's one of those bosses where it really doesn't matter what you say, because the choice is, okay, I'm gonna nuke a puppy orphanage, or I'm gonna fight you, right? Obviously you're not gonna I hope you're not gonna do that, but anyway, there's no choice basically between fighting them, right? You gotta fight them. In that case, don't talk to them, okay? There's a mechanic in this game called surprise, which is basically, if you attack a character out of stealth, it will basically surprise them for one turn, meaning all of your characters get a free turn to do whatever they want, and the next turn the enemy they just act like normal, right? This can be absolutely huge, because what it can basically let you do is cleave away half an entire enemy squad before they can even get on you, right? So Astarion, if he just attacks her right here and she was an enemy, for example, she'd be surprised. And because my character has a lot of athletics, so he can just run up to her and action surge or rage, whatever, and just kill her in 2-3 moves, okay? And the boss is gone. We just have a bunch of small enemies left. Like, surprise is a really huge mechanic in this game that lets you take care of, like, some of the bosses that are, like normally impossible to beat feasibly, right? Like, there's a specific boss in Act 2 that is basically, like, mind-numbingly hard to get through without doing this, okay? Like, it's just so crazy. And if you do this, you just kill him in, like, one go. So it's like, okay, a bit of a spoilers, but still, right? It does get crazy. So this is one thing that you have to know if you want to cruise this game at, like, a reasonable human's pace, right? So anyway, that tip's gone. The next tip is going to be to use your environments, okay? This is going to be pretty simple. If a character, say Astarion, right, is in a spot and there is a cliff, you can push them off that cliff to kill them instantly. Now, mind you, this will not give you the loot of that character, so if they have stuff that you really want, like a sword or something, and you know they have it, don't do this. But if you're about to lose a fight and they're just off like a cliff, you can very easily just walk up to them and then push them off it. And, you know, down he goes. You can also use your character's athletics to get around the map wherever you want. Jumping is something that you should be kind of spamming to just get to better positions as much as possible. It can help you reposition for the whole reposition your team thing, and it can help you get to places on the map that you normally couldn't have gotten to. And you don't need like a teleport spell to get there. Just like get some really buff dude to just jump in there and get the loot and then come back out, right? One more thing is dipping, which is basically, it's a thing for melee characters mostly, but you dip your sword into a surface, and it gets an extra d4 of that kind of damage, right? So, as an example, here we have candles, right? So we have candles here, right? So this is fire. This can work with like acid, whatever, psychic, but we have fire, and I use dip on this candle, and it's stupid, but when I do it, now the sword is on fire, and if I mouse over the sword, it has an extra 1d4 of fire damage, in that it'll roll a 4-sided dice, and whatever number comes out, it'll be added to my total damage, which is now, like, higher. Which is now 20 damage right now, which is, like, pretty nice. Now, it does only last 3 turns, which kind of sucks, but you can, I suppose, do it before combat or something to have that extra damage just blitz a team before they can even think about what to do with you, right? So next, companion quests, another huge thing. Now, companion quests are basically just things you do for your companions to just, like, progress their story and to not, like, leave them to die or whatever. But essentially speaking, let's just check that out. So, the thing with companion quests is that you basically want to do whatever it tells you to do until it comes to this point, which is continue to travel with whatever, right? And it tells you for everything, like continue to Astarion. I haven't done the thing for Gale. Now, some things require just waiting. You gotta wait a while, and then the quest will, you know, come, like, you know, trigger. Or if they have a speech bubble, then you have to talk to them, and then the quest will progress. But as long as there's something here to do, don't, like, skip to another act or rush through something. Just, like, do these character quests until it tells you they have to continue to travel with them, okay? So, I mean, I'm not done here because I have to, like, it's like a sub-quest. But yeah, like, just try not to leave some of the characters hanging like this, because when I rushed through the game in my first run, I kind of, like, ignored some of the characters that I didn't really care about, and let's just say that I wish I didn't. I wish I did do their quests. In any case, one more tip. It's kind of a simple one, but ungroup when you need to. In this game, characters can kind of just, like, act completely on their own, right? Like, so I can have my main guy go to camp, right? And then he can fast travel somewhere completely else, right? And then do his own thing, get into his own combat, just, like, do whatever he wants to do, right? You can literally go anywhere you want with any character, okay? So let's say that we're grouping, and I want to go to some spot and loot some items, but I want to bring the entire horde with me. You can just ungroup, get the guy with the best athletics, or, like, the fastest guy to just get in there, loot whatever, and then come back out. Let's say that I'm in an area where there's a lot of traps, right? So, like, there's a lot of traps that I have to deal with. In that, like, if I walk through these pressure plates or something, then it'll trigger all these traps. And you know how it is with, like, group control. You can just carefully maneuver your main guy, and the 3 just walk forward like zombies, and they just trigger every trap made on, like, humanity. So, like, if you don't want that to happen, just be very, like, particular with how you control each character, okay? Locks. Now, locks can be somewhat of an annoying obstacle earlier on in the game when you don't really know how to get through them, but there's basically two easy ways. Number one is to just break them, right? Now, this door is a wooden door. Right? This won't work with the metal stuff for the most part, unless you have like a hammer, like a warhammer or something, and your guy's really strong. But it's a wooden door, right? I can chop through it with my sword. So I have my guy like click on the sword, attack, and we gotta do a bunch of rolls to get the right damage them out, and we break through it, right? So now we're here. We broke the door, and that's one way to get through things. Another way to get through things is to pick them, right? So you can kind of just pick locks by clicking on the character who has the best like sleight of hand. So in this case, it is Astarion. And just a right click, and then there'll be an option to lock pick, right? Okay, I'll just like reload the save to show this off, right? How's the weather? But yeah, this is also one of those things where you want to save because it is a role-based thing, and you don't want to waste your like lockpicks. But yeah, we get our like lockpick guy out, and then we can right-click and lockpick, and he will go do his thing. We get a rollout, right? And because of how good he is at all this stuff, he can just lockpick this at like a roll of 3, right? So he's just like, we rolled a 4 and it did it anyway, right? So like, just yeah, we just picked the lock. This kind of goes into another tip that I wanted to get into, and I didn't know how to segue properly. But the other tip is always get the right guy for the right job, okay? The thing of just like controlling one dude into every single scenario is not the best idea because they can't be good at every single thing. So my guy is good at intimidation, stuff like that, but he's not good at like deceiving someone or performing. Like Astarion, good deceiving, performance, persuasion. Gale's got more like knowledge about history and stuff like that, so he's like kind of the knowledgeable guy in there, right? Shadowheart is like more about religion and all that stuff. So each person, right, in the game, each character has their specific set of skills that can be applied to a specific scenario. So let's say that you saved, and we have to talk to this dude right here, Gallicus, I guess, for example. And I talk to him, and I see that to convince him, I have to pass a deception check, right? My character sucks at a deception check. So what I can do is I can re-roll, get Astarion in there, he talks to that guy, and then he can very easily pass the deception check because that's what he does, right? He's good at that. He's good at lying, I guess. I mean, if you actually go through the cutscenes, it's like you can kind of tell he's lying through his teeth in every single scenario, but I guess we're not going to get into all that. Anyway, so yeah, just get the right person for the right job so that you don't waste your time reloading over and over again. And it's also more in character, right? Like, the thing that I don't like about this game is that you can't swap characters to like take your place in a dialogue, even though you're controlling all of them, which is kind of rough with some of the checks, but it's kind of in character, like your characters all walking up, they talk to some guy, he's like, what are you doing here? And then Astarion just like, and just like distracts him or something like that, or Gale's like, you have something to do somewhere else, just some stupidity, right? And yeah, I'm not insane. But yeah, I'd say that's pretty much it for the video. The other stuff are kind of just like tiny things that aren't too necessary, but I've gone through all the important stuff. Anyway, guys, this was my first Baldur's Gate 3 video. If you guys like more content about this game or just, you know, games in general, let me know and I'll put them out for you. I'm planning on making some videos about Starfield and the new Cyberpunk DLC, so I hope those go well, but I'll make a few more on Baldur's Gate 3 anyway. Alright, see you in the next one. Peace out.